All right, hey, how's it going? I want to do a brief little thing on changing a tire. I love riding a bike. Bike riding is really enjoyable. It's expedient, it's economical, and it's really fun. But one of the best things about riding a bike is when you can do your own maintenance, because there will be little maintenance things that come up, and they're much easier to do than stuff working on a car, but they can still be a little bit intimidating for people. So I wanted to do a brief rundown on changing a tire, because that's one of the simplest, easiest maintenance things. There's no reason to go to the store and pay somebody $10 to do something that once you get good at it, really only takes you 5 or 6 minutes. All right, so first of all, you're going to want to pull your bike up. This bike here has a flat tire, right? It's flat on there, and I'm going to change it. The first thing you need to know is what kind of tube are you going to need to change your tire. And there are two things you need to know. First of all, what type of tube? Is it a Presta valve tube or a Schrader valve tube? So Schrader valves are the ones we're more used to. That's this kind of thicker one. It looks like what we've always seen on a bike tire, right? It's what we kind of see on a car tire. It's the old school one. That's a Schrader. Presta is a thinner one. It's a little thinner tube here, and it's got a little smaller one. This is more used on more road bikes and some modern bikes. Pretty common, very simple, but you do need to figure out which one, because not every rim is going to be able to handle every tube. All right, so if your current bike has, whatever your current bike has, get that one. So this bike here, if I look through here, I see it's got a Schrader valve, okay? So I'm going to use the Schrader tube on that. That's what kind of tube I'm going to use. Then I need to figure out what size. The size of your inner tube is going to be written on the outside of your tire, all right? And there'll be two numbers. The first number will tell you the diameter, the first number will tell you the circumference of the tire, and the second one will tell you the width of the tube itself. The larger the second number, the fatter. So like mountain bikes and kids bikes will have a larger number, whereas like a road bike or racing bike, that's going to have a smaller second number. The first number could be something like 26, 27 and a half, 29, or it could have a European version, which is like 700 or 650 or whatever. I know that these particular bikes take a 700, so they take a 700, oops, is that upside down? Backwards. They take a 700 and a 3543 is what we put on these, and it's a Schrader tube. So I've got my tube set, all right? So I've got my tube, okay? That's the tube that's going to work for me. And now I just need to take the tire off and replace the tube and take the old one out, put the new one in, and then fill it back up with air. When you take a tire off a bike, it's pretty simple. You've got your fork comes down here, and you've got two different spots. This is a quick release. Most bikes nowadays that you get, if you go buy a new bike, it's going to have a quick release. If it doesn't have a quick release, then it's got two nuts on either side. You can use a sprocket wrench or an open-ended crescent wrench. It's probably going to be 15 millimeters. It's probably going to be the dimension, but you can mess around until you find which one works for you. Sometimes on a bike, if it's not a quick release, you're going to need to use a wrench on both sides. But like I said, most bikes nowadays, all the bikes here in the shop, they're quick release. Basically, you just unloosen it. So in this case, it's quick release. I unloosen like this, and then it's going to pop right out of the fork, and I'll be able to take it down and take it off the bike. Okay, so now I've got my tire off the bike. These were disc brake bikes, which a lot of bikes are now, which means it's just like a car. It's got this rotor here, this rotor, which runs through a pair of pads that when you squeeze them, they squeeze on the rotor, and that stops the brake. Some older bikes have the old school rim brakes that squeeze at the top, right? And if you have one of those, you do need to probably disengage those before you take the tire out, because the brake might kind of hold the tire in. All right, so if you have old school rim brakes, you're going to want to disengage those, make sure the tire pops out. But either way, once you've got your tire out, that's the first step. Now we're going to take the tire and we're going to take it off the rim so we can get the tube out. There's three parts. You've got your wheel, right, which has your rim. You've got your tire, and inside there you have a tube. Okay, so the rim, tire, tube. That's what we're going to take apart. What you'll need to do this is a tire iron. Bicycle tire irons will look something like this. Okay, they've got like a pry end, or they could look a little narrower. They could look like this. They could have been made of some other type of material, but you don't want something that's going to damage the rim. You could use, if you don't have it, you could use a flat end screwdriver. That will work. The problem is the metal on the flat end screwdriver can damage the rim and chip it. So you don't want to do that. You can get a set of tire irons. Usually they come in sets of two. Sometimes you only need one, but they come in sets of two. for $4 or $5 at your bike shop. So don't hesitate to pick up a pair of these. They're plastic, they're lightweight. I usually carry them around in my bike repair kit so I can change the tire wherever I am. Sometimes on older school mountain bikes and some of the bigger tire bikes, you don't even need a tire iron to do this, but I'm going to use a tire iron because it's much simpler. All right. So what I do for this is I'm going to insert the tire iron between the tube and the rim. Okay. So I inserted the tire iron between the tube and the rim, and I got the part of the tire outside of the rim. Now I can just run this along the edge, and it's going to pop the entire tire loose. Now, if you're just changing the tube out because you think you just have a flat, then you only want to take one side off. You don't want to take both sides off because it's going to be much easier to put the tube back in. The only problem with that is it's a little hard to check the tire or the rim to see if there was something that caused the puncture. If you don't know why you got a flat and you put a new tube in your tire, you could theoretically just get another flat because there could be a piece of metal stuck through or something breaking or a spoke poking through on the rim or something. So first you seat off one side, okay, then you're going to find your stem, okay, then you pull the stem out, and it may be in here tight. This one's in here very tight. Okay, so you pull the stem out, and once it's free of the stem hole, like that, so I popped it free, then I can pull the entire tube out, all right? So now the tube will come out, because I've got the whole edge out. All right? So now I'm pulling the tire out, or the tube out. Now you can patch your tubes. A lot of people do that. You can fill it back up with air, run it through a tub, try and find out where the leak is, and then you can put a little patch on there. And that can work really well. A new tube is going to range anywhere from $5 to $8 to $9, depending on where you buy it. So it's just up to you how often you want to do that or not. Okay. So I'm not going to look for the tube for that right now. What I am going to do is I'm going to run my fingers through the tire. I'm going to run them all through the underside of the tire and see if I find anywhere where I see something poking that might have been the cause of my flat. Most of the time you won't find anything, but every now and then you'll find like a little nail or a staple or even part of the steel belt of the tire itself that's worn through, if it's an old worn tire. And if that's the case, then you can remove it. But if you don't see anything, then it's probably nothing. You can take this opportunity to take any rocks out of the tread or anything like that that you've got. I said this is very easy, and it is very easy to do, but you will get your hands kind of dirty, but that's what soap and water is for. Okay, I don't feel anything there. Then I'm going to briefly run my fingers through the rim and make sure nothing's poking up from the other side. All right. So I'm running my fingers along the rim on the inside of here. I don't feel anything. Okay, so I don't feel anything. I think I just had a wear eventually just wore out on the tube, and that's why it popped. All right, so now I'm going to take my new tube. Unfold it. Take the cap off. This is what the Schrader looks like, right? It's not a press, it's a Schrader. You find your valve hole, which is here. Okay, then you're going to stick, banging into things, you're going to stick the stem through the hole back in the valve. Like that, and then you're going to pop it up inside the tire all the way around. After I've got it all the way back and popped up inside, I'm going to get my pump, and I'm going to pump a little bit of air into the tube. Not a lot, just a little bit, just to give it some form so it's not quite so loose. So I don't know if you have a hand pump or what kind of tire pump you have. It's good to have one around the house. Good, easy to use, especially if you're riding your bike very often. So let me get the pump. Hold on. All right, so the pump I have here has two endings. It's got a small hole and a large hole. The large hole would be for Schrader's, and the small hole would be for Presta's. If you don't have if your pump only has a large hole on it, you're going to need an adapter if you were to have a Presta valve. Now this is a Schrader valve, so it probably wouldn't matter. And in this case, I have both anyway. So I'm going to take the large end of this pump. I'm going to insert it over the valve stem. I'm going to lock it in place, and I'm going to add just a little bit of air to this tire, giving it just a little bit of stability. Okay, so once I've got a little bit of air in there, I'm going to take this off. Now, this is technically what's the hardest part. Taking the tire off and on the rim is theoretically the hardest part. So you're on the one side, and you're going to want to push it on the other side. And at first it'll go on, but if you're not careful, it'll start to pop off on the other side. So you kind of work it around, trying to get where you can see. So see, I've got it on the bottom, I've got to get it up here on the top. So I just kind of work it, all right? Now, I'll be honest with you, there are some bikes that, so now it's on all sides. The end of the tire is inside the rim on all sides. There are some bikes, especially road bikes with smaller, thinner tires, where that step is really difficult. And you can have to work. Sometimes you even want to put a little grease on part of it, but you have to just pry it little bit by little bit. Sometimes you want to use your tire irons and lock it in place so it doesn't come back out as you work your way around. But on most bikes, it's not super hard. And once you've gotten how to do your bike, like the first or second time, it just gets easier and easier. Okay, so now I'm inside. I've got my tube is through here. I'm going to pump it up the rest of the way, and then I'm going to put it back on the bike. Bike tires need to be inflated more than you think they do. The side of your tire, just like the side of a car tire, will tell you how high to inflate the tube. But it's typically, you want to be up somewhere north of 60 pounds per square inch, as much as 80 pounds per square inch. This one, I think, make sure it says it inflate here, 50 to 75 pounds per square inch, okay? So if you go under that, you'll be working way too hard, because just like having low air pressure on your car tire, so you'll be working extra hard. And second of all, you're susceptible to getting a pinch flat, which means the tube will move around inside the tire and will pinch over on itself, and you'll get a flat. So you're actually more in danger of getting a flat with an underinflated tire than you are with an overinflated tire. If you don't have a tire gauge, I suggest you get a pump that has a built-in gauge, or you can just buy a little tire gauge and check it. But I'm going to pump this up to about 60. It said 50 to 75. All right, so there I go. I'm at 60, which should be good. I'm going to disconnect it, and now I'm going to pop it around like this. I'm going to check and make sure the rim stayed where I want, that it's all kind of centered. And then all I have to do is put it back on with the quick release on here. With a disc brake, it's very simple, because the disc rotor, this rotor slides right up between the pads, and you can't help but get it right. But either way, you pop it up in here. Now I have a bike stand, which is a big advantage. If you're at a bike shop, you're going to have a bike stand or something you can use. If you were at home, you may want to turn your bike upside down so that gravity is working in your favor. But either way, all you have to do is hook that back on there. I tighten this up a bit, lock it in place, and now my wheel's back on. Now with the disc brake, it's really easy. I can tell that it's nice and level. Sometimes with an older bike or with rim brakes, you may need to move it and straighten it, loosen it, and then tighten it and get it in centered. But that's a whole other lesson. Basically, we've just changed the tire here. We now have a nice, good tire, and we're ready to go for a ride. I hope that was understandable for everybody. Hope it was clear. Don't be scared of your bike. That's one of the best things about a bike is you can just mess around with it. You're not going to totally ruin it. If you get down into a hole trying to fix something you can't, the worst thing is you can just go to the bike shop and having them do it anyway. But learning how to work on your bike, being independent with that, being self-reliant, is part of what makes bike riding so much fun and enjoyable and a blast for everybody. So you guys have a good day and safe riding out there.